I am Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest, along with my friend, colleague, and business partner, Mr. Nick Hodge. Joining us today is a very special guest for an overdue catch up, the CEO of Polymetallic, Mr. Terry Lynch. Terry, it's been a bit. We have ourselves a heck of a market. How are you, sir?
Yeah, it's great to see you guys. Yeah, it's been too long for sure. So it's good to catch up and yeah, I've been good. Obviously listen, if you're a miner and you're not smiling, something's wrong with you, right? I mean, it's got to be it's been a long time. You guys have been here forever like we have, and it's finally we're sailing into some sunny days for us, and we're all excited about that.
Listen, I recall when this was just an exploration dream and the stock was trading at 10, 15 cents and we had a bear market and we were pounding the table about being a contrarian, right? And getting ahead of the market and getting ahead of the catalyst. And as well as the stock has done and as much as you've accomplished, and we'll get into that in a second here, it's not lost on me that there's going to be a lot of new eyeballs and new investors that are coming into the metal space that are going to be looking at Polymetallic and saying, why do they have the shareholder registry that they have? Why are they being backed by some of the bigger names in the space, right? So, for people that may be new to the story, can you explain why this is such an important moment and year for Polymetallic and really the problem Polymetallic is trying to contribute a solution towards, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think at the end in mining, as you know, it's all about what you found in the ground, right? You can do all butts of arm waving, and that'll get you for a little moment in time. And if you got some track record and some friends, that'll buy you a little bit more. But at the end of the day, the rubber hits the road when the drill bit hits the dirt. So we found something special. Is the bottom line. And when you find something special in the space, you'll get followers. And guys that know what they're doing. So we were lucky. We got bought a decent project back, 5, 6 years ago. Obviously it was a nickel project at the time. We drilled it up and found a bunch of more nickel. And then in hoping to find more nickel, we stepped out and drilled an area we thought was going to be prospective for nickel, but it turned out we got hit the home run and found crazy high grades of copper and precious metals. So it's like just lucky, God's blessings. Okay, thank you. Let's be honest. We drilled it for the right reasons, but the big guy, cut us some slack and gave us some tremendous, sort of rocks to work with. So it changed our thinking on what we had, and it turned out we had this very special deposit type called an orthomagmatic nickel-copper-PGE deposit, and there's only been about 20 of them in the history of the world, and they're literally the world's greatest mines. So when you get, fortune like that, obviously, you'll find, great investors following that. So we were lucky enough to attract, Robert Friedland as our primary backer the last 2 rounds, and Rob McEwen has been in for 3 rounds. Gina Reinhardt bought in the market, and we've been blessed with some really really phenomenal, mining investors that could see what we had and got in early enough and supported us and gave us the capital to work with to continue to go forward and continue to develop this discovery, so that's sort of been the background, and that's why it's funny you mentioned about the space now attracting more and more investors. I was in New York 4 weeks ago, and I met the biggest whale of my life. And I've obviously with guys like Friedland and McEwen and Sprott and others, I met some rich folks. This guy probably worth 100 billion. I mean, unbelievable. And he's in. I think he's in Cobalt. The one with the tech guys out in Silicon Valley. He's a tech guy, and but he set up his own billion-dollar fund, just brand new. And so that stuff is happening now. You're meeting
Yeah.
guys that couldn't even spell mining. I mean, in jest, but didn't really who have no interest in it. And now all of a sudden, because of AI and because of the electrification and the critical minerals and the strategic control and stuff like that, all of a sudden mining is a raging hot word for everyone. And you're getting a lot of new money into the scenario, and a lot of now multi-strat funds that again wouldn't have any interest in mining are now not only stepping into deals but taking the entire package. So it's a different environment, and we welcome it. You know, we've been on the outcast heap for a long time, so we're looking forward to being one of the favorite kids in the class for a while.
Well, if they can't spell mining, I don't know how they'd be able to spell polymetallic or orthomagmatic. So tell me what's different about your polymetallic discovery. I see some of the companies you're comparing yourself to in the slide deck, Foran and Chalice Mining. Tell us truly why power metallic is different and what a polymetallic system truly is.
Yeah, so polymetallic just simply means multiple minerals, right? So in our case, you know, we're about 45% copper, 55% precious metals, and the precious metals we have are platinum, palladium, gold, silver. So we're about 20, 20, 10, 10. The big difference, you know, between us and some of our peers would be the grade, right? So what we're really mostly well known for is our extremely high grade. So analysts are saying, you know, roughly somewhere between 8 to 13 million tons. Pick a number between 5 to 7% copper equivalent. That was based on our old extraction numbers, which we'll talk about in a second. But so our if you look at Foran, which is obviously a sensational discovery and project in Saskatchewan, but a $3 billion market cap now, I think. But it's roughly 25 million tons at 2.5%. So our whole way of thinking is that you know we feel for you know, when you compare other polymetallics, you know, like Foran or Chalice, etc., you'll find we compare very favorably in terms of metal in the ground. You know, we've got if you sort of multiply our percentage by our tonnage, you're going to get to, you know, pretty healthy, you know, numbers of metals contained units in the ground. And obviously, as a miner, you want to process less rock if you can,
Yeah.
because it means more profitability. So with us, because it's such high grade, we'll be processing a lot less rock. So I think that it's funny, and I've said this before. We've had like holes where we had 32 meters of 7%, and it was about 110 meters from the surface where we hit the 32 meters. And I said to the guys, you know, I think we should actually say this is 120 meters of you know, of 2%, which we could have done the math on
Yeah.
because that's that
Sure. That's the
actually is so
average.
accurate, but it would have made a bigger headline because people can't do the math. They see 7% of 32 meters and it's like they think there's a decimal place misplaced. You know, honest to God, I think that's been part of the trick is that the grades have been so crazy for us that people just I think they are, you know, somehow almost a little bit unbelieving. But obviously, the more we continue to put them out there and then back them up with the metallurgical numbers, at some point they'll have to accept that, in fact, it is that is rich.
We talked about being early to this and getting the story out to the audience when it was just an early stage exploration story. Again, for those that may be new to the space, can you walk us through the Lion Zone discovery and how that was made?
Yeah, so of course we bought the historic Nisk discovery, which was the nickel. It was about 3.1 million tons of 1.5%. We bought that in I think we closed September. I guess it was March of 21, and then we started drilling it, and then about 2 years later, we were coming on the end of our winter season, and we had the average hole was about 400 meters at Nisk, and you know it had moved it from 3 million tons to like seven of an MRE, and maybe it's about 8.5 now. And we basically had a couple holes had gone long, had run into grade, and the guy said, you know, Terry, we only have 200 meters left. Do you want to throw some more cash in and drill another hole? And at the time, I was writing checks for 500,000. My friends were throwing a 500,000, and we'd do the 2-for-1 swap in Quebec. We get 2 million to work with. So I said, "Well, you know, I don't want to throw in directly because I always want to go through the market so we get more money to work with." So I said, you know, what do we have for 200 meters that would, you know, answer some geological question we had? And they said, well, you know, we got this area about 5.5 kilometers away. At the time it was called the Wildcat, you know, and it looks like it's got, you know, an EM anomaly at surface, ultramafic at surface. It'll be probably another nickel discovery like we had. So I said, okay, well, let's drill that. So we drilled it, and then that's when we got lucky, you know. So that's sort of how the discovery process worked, Gerardo, and then it as luck would have it, we discovered it at the moment of breakup, and that was the lithium summer. As you remember that crazy
Yeah.
lithium summer where you guys had the big discovery, you made, that huge
Yeah.
Patriot breakthrough that you guys all had
Still
that I
going.
missed. And I know, yeah, it's good to see it come back. And so we couldn't get rigs because the helicopter rigs were all rented by the lithium guys. So we couldn't actually get back in to follow that up until it froze
Oh
over
man.
in January. So we had to wait 8 months to follow up on that. And of course, then we hit it, and it just lit up like a bottle rocket, and that made us like the top mining stock in Canada in 2024. So it's been last year was interesting in that we got off to a good start, raised a bunch of money, and then obviously Trump got into the tariff thing, and that sort of destabilized the market for a while, and so we sort of changed tactics a little bit in terms of how we approach the drill program, and we as opposed to hitting our most obvious targets, we realized we needed to get a bunch more land because historically, if you look at the 20 orthomagmatic discoveries, 19 of them are district plays, i.e.,
Right.
they have multiple mines spread across,
Yeah.
several kilometers, in tens of kilometers. So we realized while we had 46 square kilometers, we didn't have nearly enough. And so we went out and we acquired that land package from Lyft, which we talked about, and then we did the staking as well. So we ended up adding 600% more land and now we sort of in our mind there's 8 regional targets up there, and we have control of 7 of them. So we really have the land we need now to really sort of make this a district play, which we think will ultimately unfold based on the drill bit. So that was sort of what we focused on last year, and the stock had a sort of a up and down year, finished up a bit, but we felt it never really caught its feet, but this year we started off stronger, and obviously delivered these crazy recovery numbers just this week, which just prompted us to get on the phone and say hi to you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get to metallurgy in a second. When did you realize you needed to expand the land package? Because I remember early days in the Lion discovery and some of the pushback the market was given where they were saying, yeah, this is a high grade pod, but is it part of something bigger? When did you realize it was part of something bigger that it could be district scale?
Yeah, we pretty much realized that out of the gate, Nick, but we didn't obviously have the ability to actualize it out of the gate. We had to sort of get the cash together, and the probably the most important land package we added was what we call the hydro lands, and that was basically the bordering lands that had been they were unstaked. But they couldn't be staked by anyone because Quebec Hydro had a restriction on it. It was a historic restriction that had been there for since back in the James Bay days, and there wasn't any purpose to that restriction anymore. But Quebec Hydro is obviously a huge organization, and to get their attention to remove this minor annoyance for them, but big deal for us, was something. And so we went to the James Bay Cree. And I talked to the chief and I said, Chief, look, we've got a great discovery here. I think this could be something special, but I think the other half of it's out here on this hydrolands, and we need them to remove these restrictions. And I don't think they'll just come for me. I think we need to show like a unified
Yeah.
face, and will you help me? And he was kind enough. He did. And it took some time, but they were super cooperative, and eventually we worked our way through the maze of bureaucracy at Quebec Hydro, and thanks to them, and then they put it back in the staking pool, and eventually we won the staking rounds, and now I think we got it like in November, and since then we're drilling on it. We're drilling probably, I would say, our 4 most exciting exploration plays at the moment are all under the drill bit as we speak.
With all the drilling, right? With all the drilling and the high grade hits, the copper hits, the very high grade copper hits, and these are coming over meaningful widths. It can be really easy for someone, especially that's newer to the space, to see. And you touched on this earlier, right? The 7% copper and the 32 meters of that. It can be difficult for a new investor to prioritize. Like, do I look at grade? Do I look at thickness? Does continuity matter? What's the geometry for people that may be new to the space? What do you think they should be focused on as it relates to the power metallic story? Because now you have multiple discoveries you're drilling, you have different numbers from different zones, and that can get confusing,
Yeah.
especially for new eyeballs, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this is the role that you guys play so well, is you help
Right.
to educate the audience. Obviously, when they're listening to me, that they know that, obviously my job is to sell the company and maximize the value. So they believe me, but they also know that, I'm preaching in my own church. So there's a little bit of, what is the real truth? And I think that's where, the great educators like yourselves can play a role. And clearly I think that the role that you're playing is to teach people that, there's a lot to making a discovery, and there's a lot to turning the discovery into a mine, whether that be geopolitical risk, in the areas that we're dealing with, the complexity of the deposit, and how, there's easier products to process and more difficult, and how that drives things. And at the end of the day, what would make the most valuable mine is the one that's the closest to surface and the most geologically, politically sensitive area, where there's no issues with respect to political risk, that has the highest grade. And so, that's really what we've been trying to teach people, is that we're a near surface deposit. It starts at 40 meters, so we'll actually start hitting pay dirt at 40 meters, and it's significant pay dirt. And this thing will, from a payback perspective, we expect the payback will be, under a year. When we build this thing, it'll take, so that, people understand cash flow. And I think that, as we move forward, the one thing that we didn't have is we didn't have the definitive extraction numbers. So that's why the metallurgical study was so important, because
Yeah.
up until then, people were looking at, say, Chalice, and saying, well, maybe you guys are going to be like Chalice. Chalice was a 3 billion market cap, and then dropped down to like 600 million because of the struggles they've had with their extraction issues, their metallurgy. But that was a low grade polymetallic, and we always felt with a high grade polymetallic it wouldn't be like that. But still, that was our thinking. Now we have the scientific proof that, in fact, that is the case. So I think that was the last remaining piece of data that I think independent analysts need to actually, come up with their own numbers as to our economic viability, and forecast PEAs and these types of things. So that was why it was so important for us to get that data out there.
Gerardo just mentioned grade, thickness, continuity, geometry. I guess I'll play my role, as you say, Terry, and do the educating. I want to ask about continuity. What are you seeing there at Lion, both along strike and at depth? What gives you the confidence that could be a larger and a bigger resource in the future?
Yeah, so on the Lion Zone itself, it's been quite well behaved. It is a zone system, so it zones from nickel to copper. And as a zone system does, it gets thicker and it gets thinner and then it gets thicker again. So that's always stressful when it gets thinner. You think, oh shit, maybe we've lost it, and then it gets thicker, and you're like, oh great, we've got it again. But that's just the nature of it. So we've had to learn to deal with those ups and downs. But within the Lion Zone, it's been pretty well behaved. So we're adding tonnage that way, and we'll get more assays out here in the next couple weeks on that. Some of the infill drilling we're doing there, that's been successful. So we'll ultimately look to probably be in a position to have a PEA or something like that end of this year or first of next year. So that'll help in a long ways to, I think, give full data support to people on that respect. And then on the exploration play, we've been using a technique called borehole EM,
Yep.
and that's just where you basically used airborne as well and ground. And basically EMs, when the electromagnetics react to the sulfide carrying materials in the ground, it identifies the where other sulfide materials are. Now, not all sulfide materials are metal materials. In our case, it has been that way. So we've been super
Hmm.
lucky, super blessed to have a ore body or a mineralized area that's just not filled with false positives. So you can get a lot of false positive and with the borehole EM and stuff, but we've not had that. So we've been using this borehole EM, and so when with the borehole, you just put the tool down the hole after you drill, and then you're flashing, and you're getting within 150 meters. You're getting a reading around where the more sulfides are, and then you just continue to follow it as if it keeps hitting. And so we're right now, and when we started the campaign this summer, we did a couple research holes, a couple 1,000-meter holes down parallel to structure, the line zone, using the borehole EM, and we actually, at the bottom of the hole, we got our biggest EM anomaly ever.
Hmm.
And so the boys wanted to extend it and drill into it, and I was like, no, we're that's the land we're
Hmm.
negotiating with Quebec
Yeah.
Hydro, and we got to finish that off before we
Yep.
make a discovery. Otherwise, who knows what'll happen. So we stopped, and now finally when we got it in November, we pushed through, and while we didn't that intersection didn't happen, it did allow us to run the borehole in, and then we sort of saw it was a little bit to the south and west. So we're actually drilling that right now. We're probably about I guess 20 days away from getting into that target of that big what we think will probably be the parent of the line zone, which is probably some super rich nickel copper sulfide with PGE. So that's what's happening right now on that side of things, and then we identified three other big targets that when we got the hydrolands, we primarily wanted it because the ultramafic, which was where the line zone was associated with, folds back onto the hydrolands, and it's likely that there's a fold hinge there, and so there was a high priority to get that. We thought the second half of the line was out there, and we're drilling that right now, and we're drilling Lion West, which is we had faulted out on the initial line zone after 450 meters of width, and then we went across the fault, and then we started to find grade on the other side of the fault, so that we're following up, and then something similar on the Tiger Deep. So we've got I would say four exciting big picture exploration plays that if any one of them hits, it probably immediately doubles the size of the deposit. And if if the elephant zone hits, it could be like a 5 times the size. So it's going to be so and historically, these orthomagmatics are much bigger than we currently are. The average size is over 1 million tons of contained metal. We're probably somewhere between 6 and 800,000 rate at the moment, and then there many are more than 10 million tons. So that one, it would be unusual. It would be historic for us not to be much bigger.
There's so many different ways here to add value. You mentioned Tiger, expanding Lion, the other targets you've developed, right? Where do you see the biggest upside coming from? Or is it a combination of, the exploration and increasing the tonnage and really understanding the broader picture as it relates to a district scale system, which is what you referenced earlier?
Yeah, I think obviously, we think the most obvious one is this elephant, which is, the area that's 4 to 5 times the size of Lion that we're
Yeah.
drilling into now. The hole is it's going to be about 1,300 meters. It's an angled hole though, so it's probably true depth is about 900. So we'll pierce that if that is successful, as we believe it will be, because we're 100% for hitting these sulfides. Some of them are 2 meters thick and some of them are 40 meters thick. So obviously we're
Yep.
hoping this is a thick one. But once we pierce it, then we'll be able to run some wedges off this, maybe run 4 or 5 holes off this one hole, which would really be impactful and could, show a lot of excitement. I think that these orthomagmatics, they are nickel sulfides. Okay, its origin was as a nickel sulfide, and then some sort of hydrothermal action happened and picked up the copper sulfides from this and then brought them up to the surface where they got stuck between the faults and they kept pulsing. And this is why these pipes, the line zone, were so rich. And so the key of the successful polymetallic exploration is to find these pipes, and navigate down them and ultimately find the source at the bottom. So we haven't found the source yet. So I would think the most excitement would be in finding the source.
Yeah.
And then, of course, any other pipes that we get would be, who wouldn't want to find another line zone,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It's like
Cake. Two
throw
cherries on
another
top.
7 billion on there, right? Nothing wrong with that. So, yeah, I think we're uh, really blessed. This is truly, and this is why, like, if you look at if guys would do one thing, there's a great we did a great case study at the start of the year where I got Joe Campbell and Steve Beresford, who are our technical leaders, on and talking about our program going forward, why they were excited, just sort of gave people, I think, a really good teaching lesson, if you would, about this deposit type,
Yeah.
how you approach it, why we're excited about it. And these are guys, these guys literally have found mines, big mines all around the world, and they've made big discoveries here at Nisk. So it's like, and they're excited as school children. because as a scientist, you've got the capital to go
Yeah.
and do the job right. No, they're drilling it where they want. I mean, I'm not telling them where to drill. I don't know what they're the guys that are running the drill bit, and they're doing a hell of a job. And they're super excited about it. So of course, as management team, we're excited when they're excited. So but you can watch that show. It's on our website, and I think it's a really good education for people on the technical side of things. And once they understand that, they'll understand why we're so excited on the business side of things.
Well, from drilling and exploration onto metallurgy, which was your most recent news, and you showed really high recoveries, which is super important, right? It's one thing to have a discovery; it's another thing to be able to get it out of the ground and separate the metal from the ore. But you showed really high recoveries across copper, PGMs, gold, and silver. Why is that so important right now?
Yeah, I mean, it basically, I think because with the polymetallics, because of the probably of some of the experiences like, in Brazil and with Chalice and whatnot, where lower grade polymetallic systems didn't have the recoveries, and it really messed up their
Yeah.
economics and created these projects for the moment. Maybe there's resurrection that we hope for both of them, but so I think we were dealing with some of that headwind. People were sort of saying, your recoveries are going to be shit. Even though we had done a lot of work to suggest that wasn't going to be the case, but you know, um, that was why to get that science out there to unequivocally say, hey, we had been using 80%, which we felt was conservative. It turned out it turned to be tremendously conservative. It turns out we're more like 95% across the board. So we have this people say, how's that even possible? And it's possible because Mother Earth has basically refined it for us. That's what's happened. This thing has been so folded and so it's been such a mobilized, ore body and mineralized area that it's basically done the processing for us. And so that
Hmm.
stuff just falls out. The copper is, it's almost like at 99%. I mean, how can you get better than that? It's
Yeah.
unreal. So,
That's ridiculous. Look, we got to talk capital markets. You mentioned meeting the biggest whale you've ever met and being in New York, and I know you've been overseas often here in the past several years. Can we talk capital markets and your approach and what that looks like? Because clearly there's a lot of money from a lot of new sources coming into the space.
yeah, so I think that probably the most important thing we're doing is we applied for and intend to list on the New York. And we hoped to have it done last year, and then the government shutdown happened, and then the stock fell off for a second. We thought, well, we don't really want to limp onto New York. We want to sort of roar onto New York as a proper lion should.
Yeah.
So we
Yep.
thought we knew we had this network coming. We were confident it was going to be good, and we knew we had some drill results coming. We're confident they're going to be exciting, and so we thought, hey, let's push it back a little bit and look towards end of February. But we're really convicted about getting there because we just need to get to better capital markets. The U.S. is the biggest capital market in the world. New York has become the home for most of the premier mining companies, and we want to take our spot there and hopefully be more attractive to the institutional shareholders that we ultimately need to move. Generally, I find with the juniors, you can get so far with your retail network and your early hedge fund guys and in the ultra high net worths like Robert Freeland and others, but at some point to push through to the $1 billion level and beyond, you need to get into the institutional hands, and they're going to be a lot more comfortable investing in the New York scenarios. And we've met, like, we talked about the whale I met in New York, but also met a bunch of institutional funds in New York that have not been players in the mining market, but are now going to become players.
Yeah.
And New York is only historically used to be like 10% of their mining of the listings were mining and trading and whatnot. Today it's less than 1%.
Yeah.
So there's going to be now you see. I mean, presidents and prime ministers are talking about mining, and it's become a key word, and so people are realizing, holy cow, we haven't invested enough in this space, and so governments are making direct investments in mining, and they're setting up their support structures to support mining. So I think there's going to be a lot of general interest from the general investors and the big pension funds and mutual funds out there will start to pour money into the mining space. So you got to get in the right areas for that, and I think that's New York for us. We think that'll be a really big move for us, and it'll be a one we hope that will act as a catalyst for the stock. So we're hoping to get there by the end of February. We're okay. We're good for cash. We had $33 million in the bank at the end of the last quarter, and we've got about $20 million worth of warrants or options that are expiring this year, well in the money that have been coming in. So
Yeah.
we're fine ourselves for cash, but we want to get before the bigger capital markets and allow ourselves the ability to hopefully have some of these big institutions to step up and take 10% of this deal. And I was with a fund here in the UK who's a current shareholder, and they're I think a $2.4 billion mining fund,
Hmm.
and their general position, they want to have at least a 1% position. That would be 24 million. They're probably more like maybe at 10 million with us.
Right.
So like we're less than half a position, but I think they're going to move up and take a full position, but it just shows you that now
Yeah.
that's how the size you got
Yeah.
to be to start to warrant that, because you want to be able to have these guys come in and take. They want to write 20 and $30 million checks. You got to be able to be big enough to accept that.
Well, let's beef up the credibility a little bit. You said
Hmm.
you were preaching to in your own church, or preaching to the choir. What are the remaining risks or questions that you need to answer for Power Metallic, or what could change that would cause you to rethink the plan that you're currently executing on?
Obviously, we're going forward with the concept that this is going to be a lot bigger. At some point, if we got another 65,000 meters of drilling we're doing, if we go over 65, then I think we'd have to read something into that,
Yeah.
and we'd focus on, for sure, we're going to continue to finish off the discovery of the line zone, so we'll validate that. Worst case scenario, in our view, Nick, we will have a 1 million ton a year mine, and a very profitable one that pays herself in a year, and that's worth a lot more than what we're currently worth. So that's our worst case scenario in our view. That, and especially now that this met work is coming in, we feel like that's the worst case. So that'll be the fallback position. And then so the next step really is to just to see how big it can be. And whenever you're dealing with a drill bit, there's always uncertainty. That we added a bunch more land. We're exploring that in a methodical way. We've got some cool new technology that we're going to bring to the table that should help us explore. But it's a technology that takes about 6 months to start to get the really good readings, and really up to a year. So we're trying to approach things as a big guy would in terms of the science. Like let the science do the work, and don't rush the process. I mean, we're trying to find out as quickly as we possibly can, but science will take the science time, and so we can't prejudge when the discovery will happen. We just have to believe the process and execute. Let our guys do their thing.
What in that process would cause you to say, all right, Terry, you're being a bit too aggressive. Time to slow it down. It's easy to say, well, if we find the source, we're going to ramp it up. If you see more than 64,000 meters, it's for a good reason, right? What would cause the
Yep.
opposite of that?
Yeah, again, the cool thing about our drilling approaches is that every time we do a drill into a new area, we use the borehole EM.
Yeah.
So if we don't have any hits from the borehole EM, we know, well, there's nothing out there. That's pretty conclusive. So we
Yep.
stop pushing in that area. So eventually, like we've got so many open open targets, like more open targets than we have cash to drill them. So I'm thinking that we'd have to go back to the market for more cash to exhaust all of the targets we've currently got. So and I can't imagine us, given the science has worked so far in terms of the
Yeah.
borehole EM, that would not continue to sort of allow it to grow. But I mean, that possibly could exist, right? That at the end of the day, all ore bodies end.
Sure.
We'll come to the end of the Nisk and Lion at some point. But my guess is it's sometime. Steve believes we'll be drilling on this thing in the next 10 years. So that's how big it's going to be. So we'll see.
Well,
Good
let's not look
timing.
out. Yeah, go ahead. Let's
No,
not
no,
look
no.
out
I was
10
just saying
years.
good timing.
Let's look out 12 to 18 months. We've covered the history of the project. You're currently drilling now. What should investors be looking for over the next 12 to 18 months? And when do you think, or what do you think would be a moment when the market finally gets it?
Yeah, I'm expecting. We're pretty excited about our winter drill program this year. We've got we're right now 3 rigs. We'll have 5 rigs turning by the end of the month. Expect to have 7 rigs at peak in this quarter. So we're going to answer a lot of questions over that period of time.
Yeah.
We think we'll probably drill about 35,000 meters over the next between here and end of April. So that's a fair bit of dirt, turning, and we think that'll go a long ways to sort of providing some edges. Now, the good news is that imagine if we hit this elephant that's down there that's 4 or 5 times the size of the lion.
Mm.
Well, we've been on lion for 2 years.
Yeah.
If this is 4 or 5 times the size of a lion, how long will that take? It'll take some time, right? But that's when you throw more rigs at it, right? You ramp up your exploration program. But I mean, these are first world problems, as they say, and that's really what we're trying to find is to get those next big zones identified and punch a few holes in them so they show the continuity, and then all of a sudden, then you can really start to see size in this thing. And I think that's what I was talking today to the last couple of days with a couple of funds, and their minimum check size is like 50 million.
Yeah.
That's generally what they want to put in these deals, and now they're taking our meetings. Before there was like, wow, it's a nice story, but yeah, probably
Yeah.
not. And now it's like, yeah, no, we can see you guys getting there. You're not there yet, but it looks like you've got the bones of a world class discovery, and that's what we're trying to sort of validate over the next 4 months. So I think from a investor catalyst perspective, obviously watch the assay results, look for the move to New York. I think that'll be a catalyst. I think there's some interesting new technology that we'll announce once we deploy it fully and explain why we think that could be material in advancing our execution on the discovery bit. So I think there'll be some cool approaches that way, and we always try and be very communicative with our shareholders,
Yeah.
show them what we're doing and why we're doing it, and routinely have these quarterly sessions with our tech team where they can ask questions. And we're not trying to. This is not a mystery. We're not trying to fool people here. We're trying to be transparent about what we're doing and why we're doing it and why we think it's the right thing. And we'll make mistakes along the way, as we have done, and then we'll learn from them. And correct them and do it better. So I think that'll be the approach. We'll keep on letting the science drive the boat here, and backing our science team as to the hilt.
Let's before I let you go, I got to ask, let's look to the future. It's 2 to 3 years from now. You're sitting there, you're looking back. What would it have taken for you to believe that Power Metallic was a success? Like, we did that. What is it going to take over these next 2, 3 years for you to get to that point?
Yeah, for me, I've always felt that for sure this is going to become a unicorn. Okay, I
Yeah.
just know it in my bones, and if it doesn't become a unicorn, I'll be depressed. I really just feel like this is, everyone's got a $1 billion mine in them if they can sort of find it, and I think this is ours, and I think this could, I think it's, I sort of look and say Sakatti, which is another with Anglo-American discovery in Finland, was the last of these types, right? 18 years ago, and the core of it was around 47 million tons. It's grown up now. I think they've expanded some of the resource and stuff. It's up to like 160 or 170 million tons. 43101. We've always felt that we could get there. So I really would like, I really would like to get to 5 million metal to contain tons. I mean,
Yeah.
dreaming would be to get to 10, because that would put you in, Sudbury category and Olympic Dam, and there's not a lot of those.
Yeah.
But I mean, one can dream, but I could certainly see 5 million tons as a possible, and that would be, a monstrous
Yeah.
discovery. So those are the numbers that we sort of. I believe, I firmly believe, we should be able to deliver a 10-bagger from here, and maybe we can still deliver a 50-bagger. But I mean, 10 is sort of in my number. $10 US has got to be the number.
Yeah.
So we got a long ways to go.
This has been great, Terry. It was overdue. Really, really appreciate the time. closing on thinking I can deliver a 10 bagger and maybe a 50 bagger is a hell of a close. I don't want to step on that, but I do want to thank you and Nick both for your time.
Yeah, I'll probably take a lot of heat for that because everyone says, Terry, you're just too promotional. And I'm saying, yeah, you know what, I'm a believer for sure, and everyone knows that I've written the most checks other than Freeland at this point. But we've been writing checks. I bought 600,000 shares in the last 6 weeks. When that dip happened, I stepped in and bought and told the world to buy. That the story was intact, and it was the right move. So I'm the number one fan. But I'm also trying to educate too, like you guys, and we're trying to, reach out on X and talk to people that are not
Yeah.
mining investors in a way that they'll get engaged. And you can't talk boring stuff. You got to sort of tell them a story. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and let them, validate it. And then people, and like I take heat from the mining guys who say, well, you're going on and talking, you're giving 1 minute clips like you're like a some sort of influencer. I'm saying, guys, I'm trying to talk to an audience. Remember, we got less than 1% of the people are interested in mining. Like, we just talk to ourselves, we're not going to go anywhere. We got to somehow expand the tent here.
Yeah.
Let's get out there and talk to people that have made money in many other things, including technology, which has dominated the world and will continue to do. Those AI guys have made like billions.
Yeah.
Somehow we got to interest those guys, and like now they're realizing, hey, we need this mining stuff. If we want to have power, we need mining.
Yeah.
If we want to be out driving a car, we need mining. So it's like now it's on the top of their minds, but we got to still talk to them, explain to them, why there could be exciting returns. How do we understand, where to go on these things? So I think we all, as participants in the mining space, have to get over ourselves and talk a bit more, directly to the new investors out there and encourage them to get in the space and to participate. Because I think, just as a generalist, you have to think, wow, the tech market's super toppy, and the money market, despite the commodity roar, generally speaking, we're cheaper than we've ever been, on an earnings basis.
Yeah.
And we all know lots of great exploration stories that still have got no respect,
Sure.
and there's lots of great value in this space. So if you can't get excited about us right now,
I agree.
then I don't know when you can, right? So
You keep at it,
so
Terry. There's a lot of people watching everything what they should be watching, which is their business, right? So
true
yeah,
that, true
I
that.
think we'll leave it there.
All
Terry,
right.
thank you so much. Appreciate the time, sir.
Thanks, guys. Have a great
All
night.
right. Cheers.
Cheers now. Thanks.
Hey everybody, Gerardo Del Real here. If you're enjoying the content that you just saw, you can let us know in 3 simple steps. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share across your network and on social media. Take care, everybody.